The Golden State Valkyries have their inaugural roster. Kate Martin, Temi Fagbenle, and Kayla Thornton are the leading names of their first roster after the first expansion draft in the WNBA since 2008 when the Atlanta Dream joined. Now, a quick refresher on the rules. Each of the 12 existing teams were able to protect 6 players. The rest were up for grabs for Golden State to take. Those protected lists were not made available by the league and have not been leaked anywhere. Golden State head coach Natalie Nakase said before the draft that she wanted dogs. They were looking for players who hated to lose and players who were going to work hard. The roster that they announced is filled with international talent, both international talent in terms of players from overseas, but also a lot of players who have played for their international teams. So these are experienced veterans who maybe haven't played in the WNBA a lot or were what is called draft and stash players, where a team drafts them or drafts the rights to them and holds on to them until they're ready to come to the W or until that team has more cap space to work with. But first, let's get to the standout names in this draft. The first, of course, is Kate Martin. She received a lot of cheers when announced at the Valkyries draft party on Friday night. She's an Iowa legend. Alongside Caitlin Clark, took them to 2 national championship games. She was known as the glue on that team, did a little bit of everything, a good shooter, a good rebounder, filled in gaps, just a work hard player. Natalie Nakase knows her well, of course, because the Aces drafted Kate Martin in the April collegiate draft in that very special moment where Kate wasn't sure if she was going to get drafted. They know each other well. Kate spoke glowingly about Natalie after the draft. Kate said herself that she had a decent rookie season. She stepped in big minutes early when Chelsea Gray was out, but then kind of fell out of the rotation when the Aces core 4 were back. This is big for Golden State. It's a huge name, definitely a marketing pull, a fan favorite, but also just a good player. She's also was a leader in Iowa, even though she's a little bit younger. Temi Fagbenle was probably the surprise of this expansion draft. Indiana Fever did not protect her. Now, they likely protected Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Nalissa Smith, Lexi Hull, and that 6th position probably went to another forward on the team. Temi Fagbenle is an incredible rim runner, was excellent in transition with Caitlin Clark. She is also a big get for Golden State. And then there's Kayla Thornton. Kayla Thornton is one of 2 players that we most recently saw in the WNBA Finals. She lifted the trophy with the New York Liberty, an excellent 6th player, very veteran, can again do it all and will bring a championship caliber to New York. Cecilia Zandalasini is the other player. She was on the Lynx. This is a player who had a decade-long career overseas. She returned to the league this year. Cheryl Reeve spoke very highly of her all season in her role off the bench. She played big minutes in Game 4 for the Lynx to force Game 5. Some additional names for Golden State: Julie Vanloo, the Belgian national team member, who was technically a rookie for Washington, but had that overseas international experience. She started 34 of 40 games, ran the offense, averaged 7.4 points and 4.3 assists, which was in the 90th percentile of the league. Alongside her in that backcourt on the roster is going to be Veronica Burton. She's another player who picked up big minutes in the playoffs for a contender. She's known most for her defense. And then those international players that we talked about that haven't seen a ton of WNBA minutes, but that Natalie Nakase clearly saw something in. Ileana Rupert is out of France. She's a 3rd-year player and again, has a relationship with Natalie Nakase. She played with Las Vegas her first season in the W. Maria Conde out of Spain. She was the 2019 draft pick for them, but hasn't played in the league. So what comes next for Golden State? This is their roster right now, but it is not necessarily the full roster that they're going to head into training camp with. There is still a lot of time left before the season starts. Teams can bring in more than the 12 allotted roster spots to training camp, so expect Golden State to sign some players to training camp contracts to see what they can bring. Players will be waived ahead of the first day of the season. Salary cap-wise, they have a lot of money to work with when free agency kicks off in January. The salary cap for 2025 is about 1.5 million. Not a lot of these players that they took in this expansion draft are on high deals. Stephanie Talbot, who they took from Los Angeles, she's slated to make about 125,000. Kayla Thornton about 112,000. Kate Martin is on a rookie contract for about 69,000. That means there is a lot of money Golden State can spend, and there are going to be a lot of free agents available when the opening signs. Now, there are a lot of players who could be cored by their teams, which means the franchise can give them the core tag so that they stay in town on a supermax deal for at least 1 year. If a player doesn't want to play there, though, there's a sign and trade where the team can sign the player to the core deal supermax and then trade them to Golden State in this case. Some of the names we might be looking at in free agency: Kelsey Plum with the Las Vegas Aces, a two-time champion. She's a free agent. She did not sign an extension, which was a little surprising for a team that always has signed its core four before they hit free agency. Now, for a player like Plum, it might be enticing to go to Golden State where she can be the face of the franchise, help build something there, take a bigger leadership role for a franchise like that. All the way across the country in Connecticut, there are a lot of free agents. Alyssa Thomas, DeWanna Bonner, Brianna Jones. In Dallas, Satu Sabali, she's been injured a lot, but when she's healthy is one of the best players in the league, known as a unicorn who can do everything. Indiana has a free agent in Kelsey Mitchell, the incredible guard, two-time All-Star. They might choose to sign her under the core agreement, but then trade her if she doesn't want to play in Indiana. Brianna Stewart, Courtney Vandersloot, Nneka Ogwumike, Mercedes Russell, Gabby Williams, all free agents coming up. So expect Golden State to make some moves in the free agency and bring in a high caliber player like that so that they can really start their franchise off on the right note. Because of the parameters of the draft, Golden State has a lot of mid-tier talented players, those players who came in off the bench for big minutes, whether they were a number 6 player or a number 10 player. So we'll see what free agents Golden State signs to elevate that level of play. I think the toughest part for Golden State will be building chemistry with 12 players who have not played together last season. That's a big ask. It's something you don't see often, and we'll see how Golden State handles that. The Valkyries open their inaugural 2025 season at home on May 16th against the Los Angeles Sparks.